It's all about what motivates people in their day-to-day jobs, and it's that mastery and autonomy.
It's our job to adapt our styles to suit our people, not the other way around.
Let's move on, because Sarah's asked us a question which leads us nicely from this subject into our next question, right? She said, how would you cope if the requirement is needed sooner than it takes to grow your own delivery deadlines, new products? And I think, the next question is surrounded on this. It's saying, during the pandemic, a lot of people have gone, oh, we need to shift more to online. We need to go digital first service. We need to do all of those things, which we've maybe talked about a bit, but now the pandemic is forcing us to get going on that a bit quicker. And so often we've gone and sought external expertise. That could be in the guise of a ThoughtWorks, for example, or it could be a smaller digital agency that we've worked with, or it could be contractors that we brought into the building, people who we haven't grown. Given that point, that's the reality of life. We need to bring it in. As things maybe start to settle down, people return to the office, maybe, I'm not sure the throughput will ever settle down again, but is that something where we're going to suddenly find, oh, we've now got a different set of people, a different set of dynamics. Maybe they're not bought into our culture, they're bought into their culture. And just like, how is that going to impact the new way of working with a combination of people that you've had in your organization for a long time, people that you've grown, people that you've brought in for third parties who came in to get things going fast in the pandemic? I think everybody's probably got some thoughts on this. Mohammed, should we go with you first?
Yeah, no problem. I think one of the things that I certainly learned, like we all went into the pandemic saying, okay, we need to adapt to remote working. And then you can do it two ways. You can say, you can take the hit and just quick, let's readapt without thinking ahead. But I think certainly in my case, it was really a more long-term, this is a new world kind of thinking. And that thinking is really about how does this new world influence the way we hire, the way we manage, the type of people we want. Whilst in the past, we probably would have focused, as we said, in terms of hiring, in terms of the actual skill set based on a certain environment. Now the working environment and the dynamics around the flexibility we worked fit directly into the shape of the team and who we hire. So certainly dependability has been increasing in terms of the way we measure performance, being resourceful, the quality of communication. So, and that should be the case regardless of where we work. If we went back into a full office setting, those qualities are still good to have, actually. If we went to a hybrid mode. So we try to find a way to shape the teams that is kind of irrespective of the way we work moving forward. So in that respect, the question of going back to normal is not really a question anymore. We're just now in a mode where we just have a culture, ways of working, collaboration tools, collaboration techniques, the way we do product management. So the ramification is quite big, actually. It's not just a process thing or culture thing. It's kind of rethinking how we do work, looking at all the facets of pushing change, pushing technology. So for me, it's really a holistic approach that we need to kind of look at and kind of park the COVID, not COVID, post-pandemic. It's kind of, I think it's a good learning. It's really, we were kind of our heads in the sand in a comfortable kind of, stereotypical, way. Every company kind of looked different, looked the same in terms of how they work. Now you can start to see, companies like adapting so that they're not impacted by the location or the physicality of the work environment.
I think you're right, Mohammed, that the companies are getting used to it. And us as senior leaders are probably seeing, this is obvious, mix and match a little bit, get whatever we need. Yeah. I guess, are the employees on the ground who have maybe been with us for a few years, are they feeling comfortable about that? Matt, you've entered a new organization recently. You've got a lot of people, you'll have come in with a lot of new, fresh ideas. So you're almost one of these outsiders coming in, right? you know, how has that impacted? How have you managed to say this is okay? It's all right that we've got lots of external expertise and help, and maybe just somebody comes in to kickstart us on something or helps us get. And then how have you assured your permanent people that they have a role to play in a long-term future of the company?
Good question. Yeah, much like Rick, I did that crazy thing of changing jobs in the middle of a pandemic, just for the for the challenge. It's a good question. I mean, for me, the most important thing to remember is that when this all kicked off, kind of 15 odd months ago now, it was a crisis and everyone had to react instantly to it. You don't have to react instantly to going back. You've got time. The one thing you have is time, especially with the constant changing of regulations. You've got a bit of time to think about what these returns mean. And for me, it shouldn't be a surprise to you what your staff think. You should be talking to your staff. You should have been talking to your people all the way through, because your people, that's the most important part of everything we're trying to do. So if you don't know what your people think already, you're probably in a bit of a sticky situation, because you should already be aware. But if you're not, I mean, so that the key bit is talking to them, getting that feedback, seek the feedback. What is it that's worked well for you during this kind of year or so? What hasn't worked so well? What has been, direct, you have your one-to-ones with your direct reports things. What has worked well when we brought in support? How has that worked for you? How has it helped you develop? And focus the attention on the positive part, because by and large, it will have been positive. To Sarah's question there, and we've worked with partners, I would like to work with more, rapid scale of the team, scale it back, scale it up, scale it back. Well, you've done that. Find out how people reacted to it, what did they learn, and then take the good bit. It sounds straightforward, I'm sure. Don't take the good bit, dump the bad bit. And as you go back, keep getting that feedback. So as you kind of evolve and tweak your processes, seek the feedback on it, because we don't have to react now at that pace we reacted before. We can take a breath. We can act, I guess as leaders, again, we need to act with that kind of compassion and inclusion. Going back to Rick's point again, teams are so different. They're going to, especially if you've got a widely diverse team. My team's UK spread, not worldwide spread, but it's our job to adapt our styles to suit our people, not the other way around. So we need to find out what each individual group of individuals is feeling about a situation, and understand that how team A has responded to it won't be the same as team B, and that's okay. But our job in leading that is to work out how do we find the balance where we are going to move the business forward, perhaps without spending all that money on the outsourced expertise, and bring it in-house in a sensible fashion, which I guess comes back to that first question around the growing your own. How do we develop our training plans, our development plans based on what the gaps were? Massive gap in cyber probably in most places. So does that mean we need to think about that a bit more and tweak it in a different way going forward?
I think what Mohammed said a moment ago about COVID, non-COVID, I think a lot of your answer highlights that, Matt. I know a couple of our questions are still about the pandemic, and that's something that's on everybody's mind, but it does feel like we're like, yeah, that was kind of last year. Now this is just, and a lot of what you just said, I think is universal and has been part of technology and other types of leadership for years. I don't think there was anything particularly magic you said in there, understanding what your people are, preparing them, giving them confidence that partnering, and I think partnering is a really strong word there, it is the natural way to do things. When you need some expertise, bring it in, partner. If you can get to a position where they leave that knowledge in your company, that's really great. I mean, Rennie, this is something that, is the lifeblood of your business, is going in and partnering with other companies. Yeah. So, how do you, from that side, how do you make those companies and the employees that your employees have got to work with in those companies feel comfortable that you guys are coming in with some special, ingredients, mixing it up a little bit, and then leaving later on? How do you feel about that? And has the pandemic heightened that problem at all?
Yeah, I think we approach everything from the kind of Agile Manifesto point of view, which is, there are better ways of doing things, in our opinion, than the old ways of doing it, and these are the reasons why. And the reasons why, if anybody's read Daniel Pink Drive, it's all about what motivates people in their day-to-day jobs, and it's that mastery and autonomy, and that ability to kind of carve their path and contribute to something bigger. So I think a lot of what we do is really go in and help to take a small function sitting over here and that's kind of churning out some code, and tie it into business objectives and tie it into outcomes that the business is trying to achieve. If you have a direct line of sight of what you're doing has an impact on society, if you're working in public sector or customers on the bottom end of the tail end of the output, you will be more motivated to do your job rather than thinking about your coding as a coding, day every day. So I think a lot of what we go in and do as a consultancy is, yes, we provide this, the technical excellence that comes along with it, but we're going in and helping create that mindset shift within our customers to help them think about doing things differently, to help them approach things from the view of their customers, to help think more about products rather than about project outcomes. It's all about those very slight transitions, but all that are really important to be driving the business outcomes you need, not just technology outcomes. And you have to have technology outcomes aligned with business outcomes. So we do a lot of that to bring people on board. And actually we see a lot of people engaged a lot more because they're working towards something they understand and believe in. And then the way that we do iterative development, which, everybody does nowadays, just gives, constant feedback and you allow for continuous improvement. And you pivot when you need to. You say, oh gosh, this ain't working, we've got to change direction, and you do that based on the feedback or the data that you have. So it's really kind of bringing all of that, bringing data insights into the picture, bringing the human element into the picture, but keeping the technology excellence at core.
I think
something into it, just very briefly, David. What I've realized is everything you said, Renee, is spot on, but having that established physical organization, because COVID did create a shakeup of even all those things. There's kind of sleepwalking into a routine. It's like having a town hall of everybody face to face. You get away with a less precise message. You get away with a bit of waffling around the strategy. You get away. So you've done your job. You say, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm explaining the vision. I'm making sure people are aligned around outcomes. But something around what COVID helped with, because everybody being remote, is forcing us to actually implement that in a really precise way, because you can't afford. You kind of have to double check, when everybody's remote. That are you aligned? Are you really motivated? There's all those physical signals you don't have anymore. So It's just, for me, it's kind of a wake-up call, almost like all the things we said we need to do. It's almost probably we weren't doing them exactly as they should. The way we onboard, the way we apply agility, because of that routine kind of autopilot mode that we were. And for me, it was really waking up from this and say, okay, how can we really do this? How can we be more precise in the alignment, in explaining the vision, making sure people are motivated? Certainly, I've seen that we had to work extremely hard to make sure that was the case, because there was a risk of people drifting, because they won't tell you I'm not motivated. They'll show up, sign up, do some work. But how do you really assess they're really behind you?
I think that's true, Mohammed. And Michael has asked us a question saying, COVID has caused us to shake things up, as you were saying. What else are we doing to take the opportunity? So it's easy to look at the negative side of that and just sort of go, how do we get back to normal? But actually, there's opportunity in there for us not to get back to normal and to actually go, oh, okay, this maybe gave us a kick that we needed. Rick, anything in your organization that you sort of saw as a result of that kind of shake-up during COVID?
Well, we're definitely not going to go back to the way things were. I think that would be this was not meant to be a 15-month business continuity exercise, right? This is a change. Yes, we've seen. So when the pandemic started, I was working in Skybet. We had 1,300 people in 3 locations. We moved to 1,300 people in 1,300 locations very quickly, and I now have a workforce of people who are. I have the Skybet people who were kind of addicted to co-location. We believed agile software delivery could only really be done truly if you were co-located and if you built those cultures that Renee just talked about from Dan Pink's book around autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And we learned quite quickly that actually you can do agile software delivery at scale remotely, entirely remotely. We now have some people who are desperate to go back to the office and desperate for some human interaction, if you like. We have other people who would happily never leave their home office again. And we have some people who are looking for a bit of a mix. And I think what we've seen in the success rate, and I was lucky because we're a digital business, so we don't have a large physical footprint to deal with. We don't have retail out, I do now, but didn't. How can I create parity for all of my staff, we're in a hybrid way of working, because right now when everybody is at home and everybody is on Zoom and everybody, you're dealing with the same, it's the same playing field. You've got to deal with the same problems for everybody. How do you avoid Zoom exhaustion? How do we really teach managers to say, no, really, are you really okay? And check in properly when you lose those physical signs that you have when you're seeing all of a person. But when we go back to hybrid working, how do we make sure that we don't accidentally create second-class citizens? How do we avoid the situation where there's 5 people in a room having a conversation and there's one person desperately trying to listen in on a mobile phone in the middle of the table again? Those are the situations I think we've got to really focus in on.